Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast, Transformational Architecture, Engineering, and Construction. And joining me today on the podcast, I'm really thrilled, is David Chau. Now, David is the Chief Product Officer for Podium, Podium.io. And I think Podium represents one of the most important and possibly game-changing technologies for our world going forward. Now, we all know the challenges that we face in developing an architecture, engineering, and constructing buildings. We all know about cost and schedule and overruns and quality and all the problems, because those problems have been with us forever. And while we've seen some incremental technology changes, nothing has had the impact that we've seen in other industries where technology has had such an oversized impact to their future, game-changing impact. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to jump into this idea is what kind of technology is needed. And I think Podium represents one of them. And I'm super excited to have David here with us. So David, again, welcome to the podcast. And I'd really like to start with a very simple question. What is it that makes Podium so important?
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for having me on the podcast. But yeah, let's jump into it, right? Because, like you're saying, right, there are a lot of tailwinds that are driving. That's the driving force for developers in the industry right now, right? If you just take some simple examples, data centers. You hear about it every day, right? AI is driving that demand, right? We need more data centers to house the chips to drive the demand for AI, LLMs. What that can do to change, the economics and how industry works, right? And then there's also and there's a huge tailwinds around residential as well, right? You look at India, right? The demand for residential units, right? Really, it's all about urbanization, right? Rapid urbanization of that country. California is facing high demands in that as well, right? With the recent fires. There is the Olympics coming up. Right? Demand for housing is there. Similarly, we see that in the Middle East. Right? The tailwinds are really high, right? We need to get moving. And like you said earlier, right? The problems haven't changed. Right? The problems really haven't changed, right? And what this industry is sort of crying out for is this idea that we need certainty in how we build, right, and what we build, and we need to do it fast, right? And there are headwinds as well, right, that you need to deal with, because as those demands are there, you also need to ensure, right, this industry is a multi-stakeholder industry, right? So there are aspects of community compliance with authorities, making sure that what the developers are doing is not just chasing the dollars, but creating an environment, buildings that are gonna meet the compliance rules and regimes that you need, right? So things like, is there enough parking, right? Are the setbacks right? Is it fireproof? Is it seismic proof? So those aspects needs to be there. So there is there's a lot of tailwind, right? There are headwinds against it, and there's friction, right? There's friction of doing that business. What we're doing with Podium is trying to tackle that head on, right? It's really trying to change to go, okay, how do we allow these things, right, to meet the demand, that certainty, right, but meet it in a way that also tackles the challenges of the friction of the compliance regimes, and really, you look at the state of the software right now, right? They are largely just siloed tools, right? Siloed tools that are focused on the middle section of the industry, about the part about the building and the building, right? There's not much there really to serve the developers at the front end, right? The guys that are looking at this demand challenge, right, and trying to make sure that they can meet this demand challenge in a way, in a shorter time frame, right, to kick off the the building of the building earlier, faster, but do that with certainty on costs, on revenue, and certainty on compliance. That's why Podium's so important, right? The software out there right now is just not serving, right? It's not serving the front end enough for us to meet those demands.
And so all that's great. I really liked, first of all, you didn't talk just about the challenges. You talked about the opportunities. And I love this idea that there are more opportunities than ever before for developers and architects, engineers, and construction people in data centers and in housing. And I think it is quite incredible, just the volume of opportunities. the challenges still remain. Podium as a technology is trying to address how you do that faster, better, cheaper. So how does Podium do that? What does it do to actually ease the burden of what it takes to go better, faster, cheaper?
Yeah, let's talk about that. And I think as a software geek, it gives me a bit of chance to geek out on the topic as well. Yeah, so yeah, let's look at how Podium does that and sort of why the software out there does not do that right now, right? Because we know, like, the industry knows about BIM. So BIM, right? BIM is a great framework or the invention that's been put together by the guys at Autodesk and Revit, right? And it does truly capture all aspects that you need to understand to build a building and to build it well, right? Both the building, the asset and the noun, and the building, the process and the verb, right? So yeah, BIM does articulate well all those aspects to do it. But when you want to rethink when you want to look at the problem, you sort of need to look at it from a point of view that let's not replicate the existing processes of the industry in software. Right, because essentially a lot of software out there is still doing that, right? It's taking what people used to do on pen and paper, right? Drawing drawings, submitting drawings, sharing drawings with other people, whether it's the architect or the guys on the site building, right? It's just movement of paper and drawings around, right? And really, a lot of software out there, right, it's still trying to do that, right? It's just digitizing that process. So what Podium tried to do was to look at it. Why don't we look at it and take the information and the concepts of BIM, right, and try to build it back up from a data perspective to go, okay, so let me simplify the problem down, right? I do what physicists do when they look at a problem of the messy real world, right? Simplify it down into the base constituents and build the complications back up. So you think about the challenge from a developer's point of view, right? What they want to do is take a space, right, an empty plot of land and create a building. More spaces, right? So what that is about is a system of spaces, right? Take 100, let's say 1,000 square meters and make another few thousand square meters above it, right? Make use of the air above, right? So that is all about making a system of systems, right? And that system of spaces, right, is just a building. That is literally what a building is, right? It's a bunch of spaces that humans can do activity on, whether it's economical, for economics to make money or to live, right? It's just a system of spaces, right? And then what does it take to build that system of spaces? Again, simplifying it, it's down to the parts that suppliers bring in to make the building. So again, if you think of it, that's just another set of systems. So really what the software needs to do and tackle is just systems all the way up and systems all the way down. From the system of spaces, right? And what serves those spaces? It's the structural system. What are the beams, columns, and slabs that hold up and create the system of spaces that people occupy and attend? And then there's systems, vertical transport systems, HVAC, all those are different systems in play, right? And you can take that all the way down to something like a simple screw. A screw is a fixing system. Right? It's got geometry, but the more important thing about a screw is to understand its gauge, its shaft length, how deep it is, and what type of head is on the top of the screw, right? Because that tells you how that thing can be used to assemble and create the structure that you need, right? And then you take that idea all the way back up. A bathroom pod, pre-manufactured offsite, it itself is just a system. All you need to do is understand, where are the connection points for the power? Where's the connection points for the clean and grey water to go in and out? And that's how we thought about Podium, is to look at it from the grounds up about the data. How do you connect those, right? And then also, how do you ensure that once you understand how those data operates, the key then is to automate it. And the key to automating it is automating it from the very start of the process. So I think one of the things that are missing when you look at BIM and how the industry uses it, it sort of tackles the problem midstream, right? It doesn't tackle the problem early enough when the decisions that needs to be made, right? And the decisions are made at the front through the developer's lens in terms of what is my design intent, right? What do I want to create, right? And how does that intent of creation seed the system of systems to really allow us to automate the process, right? To create all the data downstream, right? So that's what Podium's trying to do, right? It's rethinking how we do it, right? And go, okay, you want to create this data to drive certainty in demand, and you need it to create it quickly, right? And accurately and deterministically, right? So you really need automation, right? You really need automation, and you really need to start at the start of the process. And that's the problem we've been tackling in Podium. And I think we've nailed it, right? We know how to do it, right? We've got the software platform to do it, right? In terms of using automation, AI to drive that automation and creation of data that gets that certainty for the developer and all the downstream players and stakeholders. It's not just about the developer, it's the designers, the engineers, the authorities, right? The community who has a stake in the whole process. Our data can prove it and produce the information, right? Podium can produce the information automatically, and that is accessible, visible to the stakeholders that need it.
So that's pretty interesting that the way you look at it is you're not really getting rid of anybody in the process. You still have developers, you still have architects, you have engineers, you'll have construction people. All through the process, you're not getting rid of people, but you are automating the process itself. They still make the final decisions in the end. Maybe 30 years from now, they're not necessarily,
Maybe.
but we're nowhere. That's not going to happen. So, but the fact is that you also talked about it's a platform that allows all these people to communicate, and it's a platform for data. So, I mean, people throw this term platform around fairly loosely. Tell me from your perspective, is that Podium, you're saying, is more than a tool, it's a platform. So what do you mean by a platform? And what does a platform do that a tool doesn't?
Yeah, let's look at it. Yeah, perfect, right? And to me, if I really want to boil down what is the true essence and definition of a platform, right? It's all about reducing friction, right? Reducing friction for whatever is interacting with it, right? It can be people, it can be processes, it can be other systems, right? And that's how we've built Podium, right? We focus on looking at Podium as a platform for the data needed, and a platform for the automation needed, right? So you're absolutely right in saying that, our automation is really about assisting and helping create the data needed for the individuals that want to consume it. And why is it a platform? Is that why is a platform needed, right? This is a very long-lived process, this industry, right? It takes, right now, it takes 3 to 5 years to build a building, right? A significant chunk of that is in the design of the building. What Podium is doing is actually reducing that cycle of design of the building by a fair chunk, right? A massive chunk of time, right? But the entire process is long-lived, right? If you really want to think about how do you make the process better and really change the industry, a platform is needed in various senses, right? You need to connect all these stakeholders over that long period of time, right? And you sort of can't do that in an analog fashion. The existing process of exchanging documents just doesn't work. And you also need a platform from a perspective of how do you use data to feed back and feed the loop of doing better next time. We build cars and automotives. Automotives, we build airplanes by iterating on the next airplane, right? You don't redesign that airplane from scratch, right? Each time you create one, you design a new airplane, right? But we tend to do that for buildings, right? Every time we build a new building, it feels like it's bespoke, and you run through the same processes and stuff like that again, right? There is, project is truly king in the property world. What we want to do is use a platform to allow that project to still drive, right? But at the end of the day, you want that information and the data to then inform you, right, and simplify and make you build a building next time, right, for the next couple of people. And that is why platform is important. Podium has been focused on is building the application at the start of that platform, right, to make it easier to do design, right, and make it faster, do it within minutes, right, not in weeks or months.
And I like that because in the end, you're getting rid of some of the tools that people use, but there'll still be people using tools to do their job. But as a platform, your platform integrates the output of those tools back into the system so that
Absolutely.
it moves along. And I can't tell you on how many projects I see where the amount of time that's spent integrating tools and data from tools is everybody goes back down to PDF and you lose that context. So it's quite fascinating to see. But
Yeah,
I,
one
I
of the
wanted
we've been
good.
yeah, I guess I sort of missed one of the points you just mentioned, right? Is that one of the things we've been focused on with Podium, that platform aspect is that there is an incumbent set of tools out there that is important, right? Driven by the consultants that needs to do the final leg of certification of different parts of the building process, right? Whether the structural engineer certifying that the roof on top of my head is not going to fall down on me, the architect, the M&E engineers that ensures the fluid flows through pipes are going to make the heating demands, the fire protection system is sufficient, right? In the case of emergency, right? So those guys are all needed, and existing tools that they use is also needed, right? So what Podium's not trying to do is replace those tools, right? Because that also doesn't work. These things are well embedded, and they're well embedded for a really very meaningful way, right? So you're right. We need to make sure that from a Podium's perspective, a platform's perspective, right, you're playing into an existing ecosystem, not trying to replace it.
Yeah. I want to a little bit of a curveball because I didn't tell you I'd throw this question at you, but I think you talked a little bit about automation and you've talked a little bit about AI. So tell me a little bit more about that because what I heard is, tell me how the following fit together. I mean, you have a lot of algorithms that do automatic generation. You've got deterministic AI to do automation. You've got Gen AI to do something else, and then you've got agentic AI. How do these things, what are you using of those, any and all, and how do they fit together, and what do you use each to solve what kind of problem?
Yeah, no, very good question, Bill. So you look at it, yeah. So you mentioned deterministic AI, right? So that's it is. It's a fun stage, where the industry is that way. Really, you're not AI unless you're based on an LLM or agentic, right? That's sort of the message out there. Right? People tend to forget, there are existing models of, the good old fashioned AI, I would say that is still out there, right? And so what Podium's looking at, right? The deterministic part must be there. Why it must be there is what we talked about earlier, right? You're not going to replace the human certification or the organizational certification process for this industry in the short and medium term. And to do that, it needs to be deterministic, auditable, and traceable. So any element of probabilistic nature, if any of these guys that need to certify gets a sense that's any hallucination involved, then you're out of the game and out of the equation, right? So yeah, we were recently in a interesting sort of with Larsen and Toubro with their first sort of innovation event, right? We were in there talking about Podium, and a lot of the conversations ended up with they're a group of engineers, right? So they really enjoyed the talk about the deterministic AI, right? Because they know they need to certify, right? But you're right. So the other part is then, okay, once you've got that AI foundation, right, the deterministic, precision engine, right, then you're in a position where you can then look at, right, how do I add the LLMs models, the agentic models over and above that, right, to then really drive the other part of the friction, right, I talked about earlier is the consumption approach, right? How do you consume all that data, right, in a way that's meaningful to all your different stakeholders, right? A person in the community does not understand all the learnings that a structural engineer has gone through to understand to make his certification, right? So you need to find a path for all these stakeholders to consume that information in a easy way that makes sense to them, and I think that's where the sort of assisted AI, well, what we're considering as assisted AI, right, on top of determinism comes into play, right? How do you allow all these other stakeholders, right, to understand what you're building, how you're building it? And that's where you can use the LLMs, the agentic systems to help you out there. And then the next step in the puzzle, right, is when you've got that down, right, how do you start augmenting it to allow a more a stakeholder that's fairly technical, but not down into the detail, to then manipulate the deterministic AI in a way that they can be more inventive and think about more creative options out there. right? Because those creative options are in the heads of people with experience that want to use it, but they might not have the depth. So it allows you to connect the broad experience with the deep deterministic experience that Podium brings.
You know what I love is, and this gets back to realistically, again, we're not going to displace the talents of the people out there doing the work, but essentially the friction in this is that you've got so many people that need to be involved in everything from conceptualizing to final approvals on a building, but each brings a different set of talents. Podium as a platform lives through the whole thing, but it allows everybody to participate and gets rid of the lack of clarity on or the fact that everybody's living in a bubble in a project today. The platform becomes the thing that everybody sees, and by using Gen AI, LLMs, Genic AI, you can help to allow everyone to understand everything going on in a more cohesive way as a result. I think that's brilliant, actually. I don't know if people will completely understand how brilliant that is, but I think that is truly brilliant. Once people realize it, then they realize the power of a platform for them is it makes their team more productive. So
Yeah.
everyone, can get over why they need the platform and not be threatened by it. But
Yeah, if you look at even if you look at what Chat GPT and Gemini has brought, right? A part of the magic is it brought the accessibility of all the data in the internet together, right? To ask the questions that you want to
yeah,
know about in a way that you're ready to consume, right? Your
yeah,
expertise does not match the expertise of the guys that have produced the data, so it's sort of it really sort of creates that bridge, right? Like you're saying.
yeah. But I think where people will struggle is as movies are fully automated and people use Gen AI to make a movie. I think that people will say, well, why can't I create buildings that way? I think the thing that they'll find is that, you don't need to be absolutely perfect on the physics in a movie.
Yeah, you shouldn't be.
Small problems don't become a problem. When you build a building, small problems become disasters. So you can't
Yes.
you can be the creative thing in a movie, but that doesn't translate into ensuring the physics work, and you still have to use other techniques to get there. So I think that's fantastic. And but you started to talk about working with customers and demonstrating this and early pilots, and so what are the early customers saying about Podium? What do they like? What do they want to see? What guidance are they giving you? What excites them the most? I mean, what kind of feedback do you get when you first show it? What kind of feedback do you get
Yeah.
when they start to dig in? What kind of feedback do you get when they start to use it? Who gets the most excited about using it?
Yeah.
What can you tell us about that?
I think really, I think the general feedback when like we always do live demos to our customers, right? And the first feedback we generally they are truly amazed. They go, "Wow!" Right? They go, "Okay, you've just taken my brief. You told me you want this many apartment units in a building, and within minutes we generate it down to the structural details, right? And sometimes that wow starts to translate to, okay, oh wait, this is this a generative model? Did you use an LLM to create this? And then the next wow comes when we show them the individual beams and columns, right? They contain all the data that that a structural engineer will want to see, right? If they're gonna approve the structural integrity of the building, right? It contains all the data that they use in their existing downstream tools like ETABS, finite element analysis to check the building. And we show them that we can integrate it straight into ETABS. So the first sort of protocol is, they are amazed as to what we can do, right? Because there's surely no software out there right now that does that fully coordinated design of an engineered building. We're the only ones that are taking on that challenge. But then that's part of then starts to like then the flow becomes two ways. One of it is somewhat confronting because it does confront the status quo of how the process works right now. But to me, that's very enlightening and very comforting in a way that one particular customer that we talked to in the Middle East was looking at and they saw what we do in producing a bill of materials for the structure of a building in a matter of minutes. And he was saying, whoa, you guys have just changed my development process. Right? You've taken me from gate 1 to gate 6. And usually from gate 1 to gate 6, it takes them, 8 weeks, more than 8 weeks, right? It's to the point where like, you can create a bomb to allow me to submit it to my supply chain to get a quote, a package tendering quote for the building. So that's what they're saying. What the customers are telling us is, I need to absorb this and think about how my processes can change, right? How do I redo my business? And then the other sort of stream, right, that they go down to is then they want more, right? So I'll be clear, right? That's the thing. Like Podium's automation takes you a fair way through the process, right? But it doesn't eliminate people out of the equation, right? It just means they're doing less of the basic grunt work, right? The rinse and repeat work that they used to do, right? The physics of the world hasn't changed, right? And and a lot of that is the grunt work. So we've automated that. But then they look at it and go, oh, you've done 80% of it. Can you do another 10%? Can you take me to 95? Can you take me to 97? And that level of detail then then creates it's sort of this wow factor, and then now I want you to do everything, right? And then you get sort of that mixed sort of customer reaction, right? So you go, okay, if you look at sometimes you talk to the C levels, they go, okay, automated all the way, but we are quite direct and open to saying, the full automation all the way is not gonna happen, right? You still need some of these people. You still need the people in your organization to take it all the way, right? And then then that's sort of so really when we're talking about customers, right? We're really truly hitting that sort of hard fact zone of of looking at and working with our customers to go, okay, how do I adopt this? Right. And how do I do the business transformation change that is needed to adopt this? And to me, that's a really good position for a product like ours to be in, right? So we're helping these organizations really change how they're doing business faster with more certainty, right? And, and really they can add their element of expertise and creativity over the top of what Podium is doing.
But you are a real platform, given how the customers are talking and using. So that's very, very good that you've really proven it out. Now you got to get it in the hands of customers and using it. So that's a good position to be in. So maybe just building on that. So what are the kind of important features over the next couple of years? And a lot of it, I assume you're hearing from your customers. I want this, I want that. What do you see as some of those big important features you're going to add over the next couple of years into Podium?
Yeah, well, in that, let me talk about. Maybe I can talk about the Nirvana proposition, right? Let's talk about the Nirvana sort of ultimate proposition in like 5 years from now, let's say, right? Because this industry has always been driving towards modern methods of construction, right? How do we take the manufacturing regime, right, and apply it to the building industry? And that, so we're talking about modern methods of, industrialized construction. We're talking about DFMA, and really to drive that again, it does need a platform to allow you to show the value of MMC, right? And in that area of MMC, there's a lot of headwinds that you need to deal with. You need vertical integration. You need to be able to demonstrate through MMC that you can saturate your supply points, right? I can create a factory that creates bathroom pods, right? But if that factory is not utilized, 24 hours of the day, right, then there's downtime to the factory, and that makes my revenue position as a supplier sort of untenable, right? At what point does that supply point reaches a saturation where it's economical for me to build another factory in another location, right? So, what I really want, my Podium's goal for the industry is really try to find a software answer to supercharge and make MMC processes, a methodology really take off in this industry, right? It does take it's not just about software, right? We're pretty clear about that, but by having a software and a platform that allows you to demonstrate, simulate, and show the value of MNC, right? We're in a position to show how to execute it, right? So what we're seeking, sort of what Podium is seeking is developers, groups of developers out there, right? That want to take it seriously, and we've got the software platform to do it. And we just need the business economic side to play into and understand and really show that MNCs can be done in a building, right? We know that there's long life cycles and long lead times, delivery times. There are other things that needs to be taken care of in terms of policy and policy making within government agencies and things like that. But if we can take care of the software side and have all those features that demonstrate, that automate, allow the design to be taken out of a single platform and delivered to the factories on site to go, okay, this is what you need to manufacture. This is when the building's going to start to be constructed, right? That allows both the guys on site, the guys in the factories to really normalize the supply and demand cycles, right, to truly enable MNC. And that's why you need a platform. And the features that that eventually want Podium to be able to tackle, right, are those features that take care of the automation of sequences, like delivery sequences, automation of construction sequences, automation of the fabrication sequences, right, that allows MNC to truly work for this industry. And
That's awesome.
It's pretty idealistic, Bill, right? But you want to aim high, right?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's a fantastic vision for the whole industry. It's what everybody has talked about and nobody has figured out. And I think, what I take away is that the current platform is getting great feedback as you take it to the market. People are seeing it, they're understanding it. And the response is exactly what you want. I got to change my process because you have to.
Yeah.
But that's how you get the
Yeah.
value. That's how you differentiate. I think that's fantastic. I think the fact that it's built on modern next gen AI technology and other advanced deep tech technologies to do the automation means that you really have a trustworthy set of capabilities. It's an open system. You can integrate other tools in, which you have to do. If you're not open, you die. It's something that your customers can add their own value, own their own IP. By the way, they own their own data. So it's something that allows everybody to differentiate themselves in the market. So I'm truly excited about what you built. I think you've done a great job of helping us understand what Podium is. And I really want to thank you for being part of today. And I hope the audience enjoyed this as much as I did.
Thanks, Bill. Yeah, and I love talking about Podium. So thanks for having me on.
All right. Well, we'll provide all the information you need to get a hold of David and the Podium team because I'm sure they'd love to talk to you. All right, David. Thank you very much.
Okay.